Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Rogue Eye Media. My name is Alex Schlerf, and today we're going to be doing my review of Avatar: Fire and Ash. This is what has been always been one of my most anticipated movies of the year, so I can't wait to get into it. And just before I start, there's going to be a non-spoiler and spoiler section as usual, but also at the end, I think I might do like a 2 to 3 minute blurb on the some of the teasers that played before the movie, specifically the Doomsday and the Odyssey teasers. Obviously, I probably could make a whole video about the Doomsday teaser, and maybe I will once they're all out. But I saw the first one, and I might want to talk about it. So stay tuned for that at the end. It'll all be in the timestamps. But yeah, Avatar: Fire and Ash. I guess I have to start this by saying that the so my experience with the Avatar franchise is that the original Avatar movie I was not too impressed by. I thought it was solid. I thought it was fine. I think on Letterboxd I have it at like a 2.5. That was probably harsh, but 3.5 is probably realistically where I thought it. I thought it looked great. I thought there were some great characters, but I didn't like it as much. I wasn't blown away by it. I didn't really get the hype, I guess. I didn't feel the hype. So when I went to see Avatar: Way of Water, I had very low expectations. I had heard it was really good, but I didn't like the first one as much. So I thought, maybe I won't like this one as much. I was blown away by Way of Water. I thought it was incredible. I gave it a 4.5. Could have been a 5 star. I have seen it, I think, 3 times. I saw it when it came out in theaters, and I also saw it in the re-release last month, or no, not last month. That might have been 2 months ago. They re-released it before Fire and Ash came out, and I watched it in IMAX 3D, and I liked it even more than I did the first time somehow. And that's one of those movies where it's on like the fringe of my top 10 literally favorite movies of all time. I think it's incredible. I think it's such a good movie visually, the story, the characters, everything. So good. So obviously that built the hype very high. Sorry, my hair is just completely messed up right now. But that really built the hype for me for Fire and Ash, obviously, because how much I liked Way of Water. And then when the reviews started pouring in for this movie, I thought a lot of them were saying that if you like Way of Water, you're gonna like this movie as well. So that got me even more hyped for it, even with like the whatever 70% Rotten Tomato score. I don't really care about that kind of stuff, so I don't really care about that. And all my like kind of fellow Avatar fans that I know were saying that again, you're gonna really like it. If you like Way of Water, you're gonna really like this. And obviously, Way of Water set a very high bar for me, and I don't think Fire and Ash reaches that bar or those heights, but it's still an incredible movie, and I had such a good time with it. And it's funny because the group of people that I watched it with, none of them really liked it. They didn't hate it, but they all called it was kind of like fine, like 3 star to 3.5. I really like this movie, and I do have some small problems with it. Problems that I didn't have with Way of Water. Like I don't have a discernible problem with that. It just didn't get to a 5 star for me. I don't really know why. Maybe it will one day. But with Fire and Ash, it's also sitting at 4.5 and in my top 10 of the year so far. And I think this movie's just so good. And I think the first thing I want to say is that I'm so glad that I saw this in IMAX 3D because that just completely enhances the experience. Past like the 3D or whatever, how you literally feel like you're in the moment. And James Cameron has said in interviews that like this is IMAX 3D is how you're meant to watch this movie. It is the preferred format for this movie, and is how you can best experience the movie. And obviously, like if you see it in a normal format, you'll probably still like it too. But I don't have a photo of it or anything, but like the screen that I watched it on, I cheated on AMC a little bit because I did not go to AMC because my local AMC back home does not have an IMAX theater. So I went to a different theater chain, and it was probably the biggest screen I've ever seen a movie on. And it was literally it was huge. I don't know what the format exactly was, like what reel it was or what millimeter it was and all that, but just an incredible experience to watch. And with the Avatar movies, like the reality is that I mean, I guess I didn't feel this way with the first one, but these movies kind of have like a pretty low a floor in terms of what you can rate them or how much you can enjoy them because of how good the visuals are. Like regardless of how it's a super long movie and some people don't like that and they don't like the certain plot lines and some people think it's repetitive and all that, like you will not get bored watching Avatar Fire and Ash because of how good it looks. And the big thing that they introduced compared to the last one, like obviously the Water Tribe is still involved in this movie. And by the way, if you haven't seen Way of Water, it'll probably be spoilers in the non-spoiler section for that because that movie came out 3 years ago and this is very much a continuation of that. It's basically a part two of that. So, tread carefully, watch Way of Water if you haven't yet. It's on Disney Plus. But yeah, so with Fire and Ash, the big thing outside of the general visuals of Pandora and the Water Tribe is the introduction of the Fire Tribe. Or I guess they're the Ash Tribe, the Ash people, is what they call them in the movie, and you've obviously seen them in all the promos and stuff like that. And bringing them in brings just such a cool visual spectacle, and I think their opening scene is just so captivating. With um, there's just their opening, the way they come in and the way they kind of fight the Na'vi and all that. And we see a little bit of action there, and they're shooting flaming arrows and stuff. It's just like it's incredible. It's so good to look at. It's so captivating. It's so tense. The music, um, everything about the action, just everything about that is so good. And seeing that introduction on screen and seeing them as kind of like a cool, um, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess cool like dichotomy and kind of the way we see them paired against the Na'vi and kind of their ways versus our way or their ways versus the Na'vi's ways and we get to see a little bit in their tribe and like kind of like the rituals they do and all that. And it's very creepy. It's very interesting to see their backstory. They're not just like a random tribe that comes in and we don't really know anything about them. We don't know everything about them, but we see them kind of doing their rituals, and also we get to see them kind of adapt to certain things. There's a big storyline of how they come across the military, the human military in this movie, whether it's Quaritch in his avatar form or just the military in general, and seeing them like kind of learn how to adjust to the guns and their ways or our ways of life as humans and our military and stuff like that. That was really interesting to see them adapt to that and to see this tribe who clearly has been so aggressive and so action based and so territorial and all that throughout their entire existence. It's cool to see them learn new facets of the world and kind of adjust to these things that are coming in, these new weapons, these new devices and stuff like that, while still also bringing their ways onto the Na'vi and onto Quaritch and the human side of things. Their leader, I guess I'm going to probably sprinkle in details about the visuals throughout, but just generally the visuals, it looked incredible. I mean, if you thought Way of Water looked good, I mean, Way of Water still looks good, but this is just like a step up from that. And again, I would 1,000,000% recommend seeing this in IMAX 3D. And even if listen, I was skeptical at the 3D thing going into it. That was the same thing with Way of Water re-released. I loved the movie so much. I was like, I'm going to see it in 3D, but I don't really like 3D. I'm kind of worried about it. I promise, like, you're going to be like putting on the glasses before and you're like, oh, this is so annoying. But like 5 minutes in, you won't even realize. You'll just feel immersed in the whole experience and the sound and the visuals and all that. So unless you're like completely motion sick, like even then, I would say give it a chance in IMAX 3D because it makes the experience, although I haven't seen it in digital yet, or although I haven't seen it obviously in a regular format yet, I think IMAX 3D is totally worth it if you can afford it. And if there's one near you, which is obviously more somewhat of a challenge, and it was for me. Obviously, I didn't get to go to AMC this time around. But yeah, that's what the visuals obviously is incredible as expected. And the last thing I'll say about that is like this was kind of the case between comparatively like Avatar, the first one, versus Way of Water. You got to see a little bit more of like the actors' emotions, and we got to see them be more emotive with certain scenes, especially like the more personal and intimate ones when they're kind of right next to each other and not like an action sequence. And I think that is even more prevalent in this film as well. Like you can really see the emotions from all the actors and obviously not like a stacked cast of like A-listers, but even Zoe Saldana specifically, I think in the last one and this one, her face expressions and the way she acts in this is so good, and Sam Worthington as the lead obviously is good as well. But yeah, seeing MX 3D. But going on to the Fire Tribe and speaking more about them, I really like how because the narrative, and I'm not going to go into this too much, but like the narrative about these movies has been ever since the second one came out has been it's all the same. The entire same storyline, same plot line. It's so similar. I'm getting bored because it's the same as the previous movie. I definitely didn't feel that in Way of Water, and I'd say there were a couple times during Fire and Ash where I felt that a little bit, and I'll talk about that a little bit maybe in the spoiler section, but I definitely didn't feel it as much as people are saying. But to me, bringing in the Fire Tribe, or I'm going to keep correcting myself, bringing in the Ash Tribe and I'm going to say Fire Tribe, bringing in the Fire Tribe and having them, obviously last movie we had the Sullys interact with the Water Tribe, who they kind of originally there was a little bit of conflict, but they eventually sort of were allies with and kind of coalesced into their culture and all that. And we see that even more in this movie. But I think it's very interesting to bring in a tribe of people that are enemies and villains and they obviously end up bonding with Quaritch and with the military as well, with the kind of the human population that's trying to colonize Pandora. And I think that just brings such a fresh new side of things to these movies. And I kind of laughed when I was thinking about it watching the movie. I was like, how is this repetitive? Like, this is completely new compared to everything we've seen in the past two movies. And just the Fire Tribe in general, I've talked about it a little bit, but their leader, Varang, who's played by Una Chaplin, I think let me just, I don't want to, misidentify the actor who plays her. Yeah, Una Chaplin. Yeah, who plays Varong, who's the leader of the Fire Tribe. She was just so menacing and so evil and funny, even at times, like the way she interacts with Quaritch and the humans, and her kind of a little bit of beef with Neytiri as well. That was so interesting, and I thought she played an incredibly menacing and interesting villain. And her dynamic in general with Quaritch is so funny. I think Quaritch is at his absolute best and funniest in this movie. His one-liners would get me and the whole theater laughing like pretty much every time he got them out, just because it's like it's an absurd situation, like realistic. Like he is a former military guy that has now had his died, and then his memories are implanted in an avatar body, which he's been hating on the Avatar and the Na'vi like throughout the entire trilogy of movies, and now he's one of them. And like Sully's trying to appeal to his humanity, and now he has to like ally with this Fire Tribe girl, which he clearly finds attractive, at least in some way. He's a little bit enamored with her in some way. Let's just say that. And just his one-liners with that are so funny. And there's a scene where he goes into her kind of like lair, I guess, or her kind of like home base or whatever. And this is when they kind of decide to team up. And just what happens in that scene is so funny. I think part of it's online, but I'm gonna just save it if you haven't seen it. But their their dynamic is so funny, and in general, Quaritch in this movie is so good. But to talk back to Varang, she's a great villain, and again, I think being that makes this movie feel a lot more fresh. Bringing her in as Quaritch is still kind of like the co-main villain, but bringing in a new person to kind of work off him and bounce off him, and bringing in a new tribe to Pandora and to fight against the Sullys, not just to be like the first two, where it is essentially, I mean, it is still that way in this movie, with the military tracking down the Sullys or trying to colonize Pandora, or trying to colonize the whales and stuff like that. But with this movie, bringing in Varang, it does add a new twist to it, and I think it keeps it fresh and makes it so you aren't just watching a rehash of Way of Water or of Avatars. I think, excuse me, I think that makes things fresh and interesting, and I like that a lot with how they introduced the Fire Tribe and all that. And like I said, I think people are probably a little bit sick of Quaritch at this point, which I would understand, I guess. But I think he's such a good. Stephen Lang is just so good with the one-liners and the action, and he is just his character is just a generational hater. Like he will literally stop at nothing to get Sully or break this family up. And obviously, there's the dynamic with him trying to get Spider in this movie, so that's a whole other thing. But even just expanding it to the cast of characters, the Sully family is obviously great as always. I think Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana are incredible in this movie. I think Zoe, as I was saying earlier, puts in a great performance, and with her kind of aggression and her vengeance based on what's happened in the previous movie, and the emotion that she feels because of her son dying at the end of the second one, and that kind of shows she's very emotional and like kind of like depressed in the beginning, the first kind of 30 minutes of this one, and seeing her take that into rage and vengeance, and how she's mad at Jake in certain ways, but even then she's still loyal to him and still comes after him. And she just has so many cool sequences. There's a lot of similar ones to, like, if you remember in Way of Water at the end, where she goes on that sinking ship and kind of like picks people off one by one. Like, if you like that sequence, there's so many cool ones like that. She's so cool in this movie. There's even like a Star Wars inspired sequence in this, and like you'll know what I'm talking about when you see it if you're a Star Wars fan. And that was just like, God, I can't wait to see this movie again. Like that part was just like clearly influenced by Star Wars, but just so good. And so she's so cool in this movie. And then Jake as well is enjoyable. I thought Jake was a lot more enjoyable in the second one compared to the first one, and that continues in this one. I think he's a very enjoyable character and someone you really do want to root for, as you kind of our main lead of the movie. And I think his father-son dynamic with Loak, his oldest son, was great. Their arc they went on throughout this movie was so enjoyable for me, and to see that progression throughout the movie, because obviously to start off the movie, both Loak Loak feels. By the way, Loak is the one who narrates this movie. He is the narrator for this entire movie, and I loved his narration in this. But and I was kind of getting. No, I can't say that without a spoiler. But I'll say that in spoiler section. But his narration is great. But I think that after the events of the second movie and his brother dying and it being not fully his fault, but being partly his fault, Jake feels a little bit of resentment towards him, and he feels a little bit of guilt himself with how his brother turned out and with how things with his brother turned out and all that. And I think that seeing that is very nuanced and very in depth, and I like that character exploration and to see how Jake eventually kind of just breaks down with him and seeing there. I'm really trying to tiptoe around spoilers, but seeing how they explore that dynamic throughout the movie and how it kind of there's a the great character arc throughout it with the two of them. I mean, Loak is just a great character in general in this one, but to see the father son dynamic there and how they are able to work through their issues and be able to work together and how they're able to be loyal to each other and be by each other's side, especially in kind of the third act, is was great. I loved how they played that arc out throughout the movie, and yeah, that was one of my favorite parts of the movie is to see Loak become more of a prominent character. As well as just his relationship with Jake, as well as that was great. I guess speaking more about the whole cast of characters, one of the main things I've been seeing from Avatar fans and non-Avatar fans alike is the general hate for Spider as a character, and I saw that in Way of Water, and I felt that a little bit of way in Way of Water. I could kind of see where that was coming from, and I can't not see it where people are coming from in this one. But honestly, to me, I found him more enjoyable in this movie than he was in the last one. I'm not gonna say he was like one of my favorite characters, and this is gonna be one of my negatives, but there was a couple like really bad dialogue moments with him and Kiri. But I don't know. I liked him this movie, and I think having him kind of be like the quasi like MacGuffin in this movie, where like although Quaritch's motivations are partly aligned with the Fire Tribe and also to capture Jake and kill him in front of everyone because he's kind of this spiritual figure. I think that a lot of his motivations are also the fact that Spider is with the Na'vi and he wants to capture him because he is his son, biological son. So yeah, I think that doing I guess that's kind of how it was in the last movie, so maybe it's just I didn't mind it in the last movie. I don't mind it in this one either. But I just think Spider is more enjoyable as a character. There's a couple things that happen to him as a character that are going to be spoilers, but they make him more interesting in this movie and kind of what happens very early on. I think it's like within the first hour of this movie, something that happens to him physiologically that kind of changes the way we think about him and think about certain things in Pandora. I think that makes him a lot more interesting a character and to see, and that makes him more of a MacGuffin too. And again, I can't talk about it without spoilers because I don't think they've been showing that in the promos at all. But that made him more interesting to me. I didn't mind him in this movie. I get it. Like I do get it that the only time I really noticed it was like, God, spoiler. I wish I could just talk about that. But there's a moment in the third act where like I can feel why people were like, "Come on, like let's push this aside." So I can see that, but yeah, I mean, I think they elevated his role in this movie, and I think it didn't work for a lot of people, but it did work for me. I really didn't mind Spider in this movie. In fact, I enjoyed his character at points, aside from like some rough dialogue moments. And then yeah, Kiri, Sigourney Weaver's character, I've always thought that was kind of a weird character, like the fact that Sigourney is playing a 14-year-old kid. Like I just have always been I've always just kind of thought that was strange and in general, but I think that I think she's good in this movie. I think the arc she goes in this movie is interesting, and it is similar to the last movie where she is a very important character. She's kind of trying to figure out who she is and what her role is in Pandora and what her origins are and what her connections to the life tree are and to her mother, who's obviously a human. And I think I'm still not sure how I feel about her and how big a role she had, but I did enjoy her arc in this movie, and there were certain moments that like visually were stunning with her character, kind of like the last one with the lights. There's similar stuff to that, um, and they're good. I'm going to talk about this in negatives, but like there is the good parts of her dynamic with Spider as well, and seeing their kind of relationship, I guess, is so to speak. Not like romantically, but just their relationship in general. I thought was interesting, and I didn't mind. Again, I'm not sure how I feel about her, but I think it was fine. Like I said, I liked how they brought the water people back into this movie and didn't like kind of discard them completely. Obviously, the Sully's end the second movie being aligned with the fire traps or the water traps, it makes sense. But I like to see their dynamic throughout the movie. I think Kate Winslet's character has a lot of good, noticeable moments in this movie. I think the characters of the Water Tribe could tend to be a little bit forgettable in the last one, which again, I love that movie. It's not a problem for me, but the focus is on the Sullys and their family, especially with like introducing all the new kids of Jake and Neytiri. But I think that Kate Winslet's character has a couple really good moments here, especially towards the third act. I think I don't remember her character's name, but Bailey Bass's character, again, one of the water people who kind of has that kind of dynamic with Loak. I think they have a lot of really good moments there, and I think she's really good in this movie. Yeah, I guess that's it for like the whole cast of characters, unless I'm forgetting. The marine biologist, I'm the character name and actor name is escaping me right now, but he also has a lot of funny moments in this movie, and he does something in the second to third act that is very pivotal to the plot, and to see him kind of be thrust into the situation is just hilarious. He's a very good comedic actor. And yeah, I guess that's kind of it for the cast of characters. I have a couple notes written down, so that's what I'm looking at right now. Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of touched on this in the visuals section, but the action is incredible. Specifically for me, the scenes that really stood out were the the opening scene with the water traders, or was it the air traders, maybe? I forget what the name of the flying ships were, but I think it was the air traders and then the fire tribe, and seeing their introduction. That scene in general just was incredible, and seeing the what's the best way to put this? Seeing like the I don't know, just seeing where certain characters were placed and how they kind of run around. And there's so many characters we have to follow in any given scene, and still you don't get confused, you're not lost, you don't not care about one character, or you feel a certain way about what a certain character and all that. Like you can understand everything that's going on in the visuals and all that with the fire arrows and all that, which is really cool. And then I also think kind of the final act, or there's kind of like a final showdown between two characters in this movie, and I think that was really cool with the fire around them and the floating islands and stuff. It's a great sequence, and I think it is really interesting, and you do feel the weight of it based on what has happened throughout the entire trilogy, but what has been built up throughout this movie. And again, I can't talk about that until spoilers, but great sequence there. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other positives. I think I've touched on most of it. I don't want to, kind of rehash the same things. But yeah, so my two small problems with this, and they're small in the sense that like I gave this a 4.5 or a 9 out of 10. So like anything I have is very small. It didn't bother me too much. But obviously the first thing I've been talking about a couple times, the dialogue from the kids, but specifically Spider and Curie, is just very like cringe and off at points. I get it. They're young kids. I understand it totally. And I think part of it is the fact that it's Sigourney Weaver delivering them. And it's just like, it's just such a strange, like, why not just cast a kid? I don't, I get it. And her connections to her mother and all that, but like, just cast a kid, man. Like, I don't know why you have to make Sigourney Weaver a 14-year-old kid. So a couple of her deliveries, she's amazing, obviously, as an actor. I'm not trashing on her. One of the most iconic actors of her generation. But it was just a couple really rough dialogue moments with her and Spider, and again, I did like both of them more as a character this time around, I think. But even with that, even with liking them more this time around, there were a lot of moments where I just rolled my eyes, and I was kind of just like, like it made me understand why people don't like them as characters because of kind of that dialogue. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was that the whale storyline in this movie, and how the whales come in, and how some of them are exiled, and Loak's relationship with them. It's funny because that was one of my favorite moments of the last movie. I think my literal favorite scene in Way of Water is the scene where Loak bonds with the whale, and we see them kind of going through the water and all that. Incredible scene visually, the themes, all that stuff. But I think with this movie and the way they handle the whale exile, and how they handle Loak's relationship with them and all the kids and the water trap and stuff like that, it was just repetitive. It felt like the exact same storyline as the first movie, and I think, it just wasn't as interesting to me. I think it does come around in the end, and the way they come into the third act is cool and interesting, and I was excited about that. But the way they played it out throughout the movie, and whenever they cut to it, I was kind of just like, I don't care about this. Like this is the exact same as the first movie or the second movie, and I know where this is going to go. I know exactly what's going to happen. And there is like the council meeting with Loak. That's a good scene and all that, but I just think the scenes leading up to that are just like whatever. Like I didn't they weren't interesting me at all, and I was just waiting for them to cut back to like a scene with Neytiri or Jake or stuff like that. Yeah, that was my other small problem with it, is just that in particular felt repetitive. And you know, I like I said, I liked it in the last movie, so I think it being repetitive wouldn't always necessarily be a bad thing. But in this case, I just didn't find it as engaging for me, and it just felt like I just didn't care about it. I didn't care about it as much. Again, it's not a big problem. It didn't bother me too much, but in a movie that is this long and does have this many storylines, you will tend to single out certain things that aren't as interesting. And maybe that's just it. Is that's the other storylines are so compelling. But yeah, I had a little bit of a problem with how they played that out. Can't get into too many specifics, but yeah, that's about it for my non-spoiler part. Like I said, I love this movie so much. I'm gonna real quick just get my 2025 list out. Jeez, this year's almost over. In my 2025 list, which is right now 100, oh wow, there's 2 pages to it now on Letterboxd. 102 new releases this year that I've seen, and Avatar: Fire and Ash is currently at number 8 in my 2025 list. Let me just roll through the top 10 for people who are you kind of just tuning in now from 1 to 10. Sinners, Sentimental Value, One Battle After Another, Fantastic Four, Weapons, Begonia, Hamnet, Avatar Fire and Ash, Frankenstein, and Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I've either done video reviews or written reviews for every single one of those movies except for, let's see, I did Fantastic Four, yeah, except for Hamnet and Frankenstein, which is not for lack of like those movies being good. I just never got around to it. It's just bad timing. But I don't know if you can hear that rain. It's pouring rain outside, so hopefully that my mic is not picking that up. But yeah, it's in my top 10 from this year. I think that's an incredible movie. I was thoroughly compelled by it. It is the longest Avatar movie of the franchise, so I'll just go into this saying, like, if you were if you got bored in the second one watching it because of how long it was, you probably won't like this one either. I think, although I'm not fully in the camp of like this is a rehash of the last movie, I don't really feel that way. I think there's a lot of new aspects to it with the Fire Tribe and all that, and how they play out the story. But if that bothered you with the second movie, I think it might bother you in this one. So just tread carefully. I think I would still recommend to see it, because as frustrated as you might get with the story and certain plot holes that people thought happened, I think with all that at the same time, the visuals and seeing them in IMAX 3D or even a regular format are worth just seeing on the big screen. Whether you don't like the first one, second one, whatever, I think that's worth seeing in itself. And even my friends that I saw it with that didn't like the movie as much still gave it a decently high rating just because of the visuals, and that made it worth it. So yeah, that's really how it is with Avatar: Fire and Ash. And again, I think if you liked Way of Water, you will really like this movie. I think even if you didn't like Way of Water as much, you can still like this movie a lot. But I think, again, if you're a fan of Way of Water like I am, or if you're a fan of the Avatar franchise in general, you're going to love Fire and Ash, and go watch it on the biggest screen possible. Support movie theaters. Support movie theaters. It's as important as ever. Support movie theaters, please. So yeah, that's all I've got for non-spoilers. In the spoiler section, I'm really just going to talk about like how the movie ended and where they could potentially go with Avatar 4 and 5, which have already been, I think that part of them have been filmed. I don't know what the format of that is. Jesus, this is like, this rain is super distracting. I really hope it's not coming up on the microphone, but yeah. So that's my review, my non-spoiler review for Avatar: Fire and Ash, 4.5 star in my top 10 from this year. I'm definitely going to see it again. I think I was going to anyway because of the Doomsday teasers changing every week, but yeah, definitely going to see this more than once, maybe even 3 times in theaters. I love this movie, and I think you're going to love it too. So yeah, go see it, biggest screen possible, and just going to cut real quick and go to my spoiler section right now. Okay, so spoiler section, this probably won't be too long because I think I touched on most things I wanted to touch on story-wise within my non-spoiler review, but I just want to talk about the way the movie ended, and I didn't put this in my positives or negatives because I wanted to judge this movie on what it is, not on what it could be setting up, not on what it is as a third movie in a trilogy, not as the way it ended and what it could potentially set up or what it couldn't set up. Like, I wanted to judge this movie based on what it is. That's what I do with every movie I watch, or I try to do with every movie I watch, unless it's like literally like an incomplete movie. Like that's or 28 years later was an example of this year where I felt like it was just sequel set up at the end and it frustrated me. But with this movie and the way it ended, it did confuse me a little bit because first off, they only killed a few characters. They killed the characters from a couple characters in the Water Tribe, Kate Winslet, and I think one of her sons. But besides from that, like pretty much everyone made it out of this movie, and I was kind of surprised by that. I thought maybe one of Jake or Neytiri died. Now I'm glad they didn't because that would have been devastating. But that was something I was expecting, considering that like I kind of thought that maybe this being the third, although they are doing Avatar 4 and 5, at least we're expecting them to, as long as this does well at the box office, which it will. But I was kind of expecting that maybe this third movie would feel like a conclusion to the trilogy. Even if these characters returned in 4 and 5, this would feel like kind of a wrap up to the three movies that we've seen before. And there were parts of it that seemed that way. I mean, Quaritch is probably dead. We don't know for sure, but I think we didn't see a body, obviously, but he's probably dead. So that might come into play as like a conclusion of the trilogy and stuff like that. But and like them accepting Curie into the tribe, them accepting Spider into the tribe, all that could be seen as like, all right, now they're finally ending the trilogy. But I don't know, just the way it ended, it didn't feel like there were two parts of it. Is that it didn't feel like it was an end to the trilogy, but it also didn't feel like it was like setting up for a fourth movie. It literally just felt like it was just like it just ended, and it was just like I don't know where they're gonna go from here. Like that's literally where it was. I was like, I have no idea where they're going to go from here. It didn't feel like it was. And again, this is not a negative. It was just like I don't know what to expect for a fourth and fifth movie because like it didn't feel like they set anything up or they concluded like it or there was going to be like this was a big conclusion. Now we're doing new characters in 4 or 5. Like it didn't feel like either of those things. So I'm kind of lost to where they're going to go from here. There's been rumors about like James Cameron like stepping down and not directing the next one, and I would have been with people on that if this had ended in a different way, but like just with how it ended, like I just don't see. First off, I would see an Avatar 4 without James Cameron directing, but like I wouldn't have as much interest in it. So I hope that it's still him directing it, obviously, because he's a genius with these movies. But yeah, I think that I'm not sure where they're trying to go from here, and it should be really interesting to see once that production, fully gets into gear with Avatar 4. Again, I think they filmed some of it, and I saw a clip of Sigourney Weaver in an interview that said that her character is apparently narrating the fourth one, which not sure how to feel about that. It's exciting because it's Sigourney Weaver, but at the same time, I've had my problems with that character, but we'll kind of see where that goes. But and I'm interested to see because like it felt like this movie was like her movie. Like this was the movie where she was at her highest. Maybe that's not going to be the case, but yeah. So not sure where they're going with that. Because obviously, like, okay, so Quaritch is probably dead, but he might not be. Who knows? We didn't see a body. Maybe him jumping off that was the plan was for Varang to catch him and send them back to the base and kind of regroup. Maybe that's what it was. Obviously, if Varang is still alive, I think that is a character that I definitely would like to see come back in future sequels because of just how good and menacing she was, and maybe see a new dynamic to her. Maybe see her be more sympathetic, or just even more evil than before, and to see how she'll respond to how that battle played out. And I want to see more, kind of battles with her and Neytiri because the way they are, their dynamic is so interesting. But yeah, so I think Quaritch is probably dead. I would prefer if he was. Again, I really liked Quaritch in this movie, and I think he did get some new layers in this movie, and we saw him. There were points where he potentially could have gone to the good side, and Jake was trying to convince him, and it's classic. The redemption arc for him wasn't always something that I'd be interested in because like it's classic Quaritch to not fall for that kind of Sully trap there in his eyes. But yeah, although I enjoyed him in this movie, I'm kind of like the Quaritch thing. I'm kind of just like sick of that. I'm kind of like whatever. I don't need to see more of Quaritch. I won't complain if I do, but I don't know if I need to see more of him. That was the other thing is like bringing in the whole dynamic of Spider having this DNA that could potentially allow humans to live in Pandora without the mask on. Like I thought that was going to be the sequel setup here, is that eventually they were going to find a way to harvest that thing out of him, or they were going to keep him in custody, or he was going to go to his dad's side and be with his dad. Like I thought something was going to happen there with Spider, but now he's just fully integrated into the Na'vi tribe and in the spirit realm and all that, and his relationship with Kiri is obviously kind of elevating as well. So I don't know if that's going to be continued. It probably will. I don't know. Again, I don't know if Orang's gonna be back. I don't know if Quaritch is gonna be back. I don't know if who's going to be the focus of the next movie, whether it's going to be the Sullys or maybe they'll bring in a whole group of new characters as well and have the Sullys as like side characters. I'm definitely curious. I don't have any theories because it's just like I said, like the way they end this movie was kind of strange, where it was like not a conclusion to the original trilogy, not a conclusion to this trilogy, but at the same time, it didn't feel like it was like a springboard to a new four and five. Like it just didn't feel like that. Like this, for all intents and purposes, was like a second movie in a trilogy. It felt like it was like that's I don't know how to really explain that. It's just how it felt to me. I felt like this is like this was this felt like a sequel. It didn't feel like it was ending a trilogy or setting anything else up. So I don't know where they're gonna go from here. Obviously, I trust James Cameron. He's a genius with these movies, and I'll watch anything that he puts to screen, even if he's just a producer or just a writer, or only a director, like anything like that. Obviously, I'll watch to see where they go from here. To me, like I don't have any really wants and desires for an Avatar 4, but I just want them to try to continue to create a fresh new storyline and dynamic. Like obviously the main backbone of this franchise is the humans versus the Na'vi, and that needs to be present at every single turn or every single new installment in this franchise. But I'm I'm good on the Quaritch. I'm good on the that like that white woman military general. I think she died anyway. But like I'm good on that. I'm not. I don't need to see any more of her. I don't need to see any more of the guy with one arm who I think died too, or like the marine biologist. Or I could see him coming back because he's a good character. But like I don't need to see them again. Let's bring in a fresh crew. Maybe let's bring in a fresh crew of military people. Maybe let's bring in like a team of marine biologists. Maybe like let's go Jurassic Park with it and like have the next movie be like a team of humans that actually has good intentions and see how they interact with the Navi, and maybe there's one bad person in the flock, or maybe they change their motivations. Like have something like that. Bring in something new and fresh, and don't make it where it's just Quaritch and his buddy against Jake Sully and his family again. Like at that point, if that happened again in Avatar 4, I can't say this for sure because like that's kind of how it is in Avatar 3, and still it is really good because of the Fire Tribe and all that. But like if that is Avatar 4 and that's where they go with it, I would probably start to be feeling the fatigue and um the repetitiveness that other people are feeling about this franchise to this point. So that's where I prefer to see them go, is to continue to add new layers and be fresh and tell a new story. And again, people thought that like they would kill off a lot of the older people, like maybe Sully and Neytiri, or Sully or Neytiri in this movie, and then the next movie would be like a big time jump. We'd be able to see the kids as adults and see how they've adjusted and see what's going on with, kind of humans and that dynamic. But obviously that's not what they did. So I'm curious. I'm very curious to see where they go. Again, it's going to make a crap ton of money. So they're going to make another movie at some point. It just depends on when it is, what the plot is, what the cast is, and all that. Like I said, the only thing we really know about Avatar 4 is that Sigourney Weaver has said in an interview that she is narrating the movie. So take that as you will. Who knows? Yeah, I mean, a couple of the sequences that I wasn't able to talk about, non spoilers, the duel between, or kind of the final duel between Quaritch and Sully is great with the fire all around and them falling off the islands, and Sully like at the very last moment trying to convince him to be good, and still Quaritch doesn't fold. Like he knows that. See, the way I interpreted it was like he is dead because what he decided is that either he goes good and goes with the Sully tribe, or they kill him. So he was just like, well, I don't want to go good, so I'm just going to fall off, which I think is like a classic Quaritch moment. I think it's a great, characterization for him. That's classic him. But, we didn't see a body. We saw him fall off. We saw a little close up on him, and then it kind of ended. But I wouldn't bring him back. I know that's what people said after the first one, and then the second one he ended up being good, and I liked him in this one too. But like, just move on. I'm good on him right now. Great actor, great character, but I think I'm good on him. And maybe I'll be wrong about that. Maybe they'll bring him back in a good way. But for right now, I'm good on him. Varang, would love to see her again. But yeah, the sequence, like the Star Wars sequence with her, like with Neytiri, like going in and out of like the little parts of the manufactured city that the humans have had, was just so cool, so awesome. And another great scene was the birth scene with Kate Winslet's character, and her giving birth and dying and giving it to Neytiri, and that was just so good, so emotional. If I wasn't wearing like big 3D glasses, I might have been emotional watching it. But yeah, such a good sequence there, or just such a good scene. And again, that's another scene where like you can actively see the facial acting from Kate Winslet and Zoe Saldana. So great scene there. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other sequences I have to like kind of stand out that I couldn't talk about before. I thought like the scene where Spider gets is able to take his mask off and breathe in Pandora. I thought that was great, and the way it was built up, very obvious what was going to happen. Like it's kind of like it very much reminded me of the Sue Storm scene at the end of Fantastic Four with a little like doop, doop, like the hand going up. Reminded me of that a lot. I didn't think Spider was going to die. I thought it was very obvious that he was going to. I thought they were setting him up to die with the first couple scenes, but then once like Kitty was like, "You need to let me do this. I'm going to connect to the thing." Then I was like, "Yeah, this is Spider's gonna have something happen here." And then it brings an interesting storyline about the thing that's in his body and how he's able to breathe in Pandora. And yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that expanded on in future movies, like seeing if um, other tribes able to do that with humans, or whether spiders can get captured again. Like I wouldn't mind seeing that more of that. So that's something that I wouldn't mind seeing again. But that was a good sequence as well. Obviously, the ending with them in the spirit realm, that's a cool sequence as well. And again, like any problems that I've had with Curie and Spider and their dynamic, even with that, I think that final scene with them in the spirit realm is very good, and it is very captivating. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for Avatar Fire and Ash. I think that this was a great movie. If you have seen it, let me know in the comments below what you think. If you're listening to the spoiler section, let me know in the comments what you thought. Again, I feel like I'm higher on this movie than most people have been, or I think most Avatar fans have liked it, but I watched it with a few people that weren't like huge Avatar fans, or one of them was, but a few of them weren't huge Avatar fans, and they kind of just thought it was all right. They weren't blown away by it like I was. But yeah, very curious to see what people think in the comments, and where also you think that they will go with Avatar 4 and 5. Very curious to hear theories and all that, and talk about people with that. So let me know in the comments below. And yeah, okay, real quick, like I think I've gone a long time, so like 2 minutes. Doomsday and the Odyssey. First off, the Odyssey. They played a 5 minute prologue of the Odyssey before I walked in the theater right as it was starting. They played a 5 minute prologue of the Odyssey before Avatar Fire and Ash. I think if you go see it in IMAX 3D, you will see this as well. So if you're looking forward to that, go see it, because it looks incredible. I mean, it's Christopher Nolan, it's Matt Damon, it's John Bernthal. It's just like I'm not surprised by it, but like it looks so good. And literally, it was a 5 minute prologue, and towards the end, when like there was kind of it was starting to get a little bit tense, like the music was starting to ramp up a little bit. I was genuinely like stressed. I was genuinely into it, and I did not want it to end. So I've never read the Odyssey. I'm not a big Greek myth fan, but I am a huge Christopher Nolan fan. I'm a fan of everyone in the cast, so I'm sure it's going to be incredible. And everything we've seen so far from the trailers, the teaser that played in front of what was it, Jurassic Park over the past summer, and seeing this now, like it looks incredible. I'm so excited for it. Again, I'm not like I can't tell you if it's like historically accurate or something, because I've never read the Odyssey. I'm not big into that kind of era of storytelling, I guess. But still, Christopher Nolan, I'm seated. Opening night looks incredible. If you're excited for that movie, go see Fire and Ash, because it looks incredible. And seeing it on that big screen was just, whew. I need to see this movie in IMAX, because the Odyssey. I mean, I need to see it in IMAX, because it was, yeah, just stunning to see on that big screen. And then Doomsday, I had already seen, and this is gonna be a spoiler for the Doomsday teaser, by the way, if you haven't seen it. But I had already heard and seen parts of the teaser, because it had leaked online, and I'm just kind of in those circles, so it's hard for me to avoid that kind of stuff. So it wasn't something where I watched it and I was like, oh my God, like completely shocked. Like I wasn't shocked at all, because I knew what was going to happen. But yeah, it was cool. Steve Rogers is back, obviously officially now. I think that's another reason I wasn't as excited for it, because literally a year ago, I think literally, hold on, like let me do this real quick, because I did a video about when the trades confirmed that Chris Evans and Haley Atwell were going to be in Doomsday before it even started filming. And I want to see how, I think it was like almost exactly a year ago. So I'm gonna hopefully this doesn't like play out loud. I'm literally wearing the same shirt. That's hilarious. December 13th. So same shirt, same location, almost a little over a year ago. I talked about how Chris Evans and Haley Atwell were going to return and what that could mean for the movie. And now, a year later and a year out from Doomsday, we have it official from the Russos and from from Marvel that Chris Evans is returning. We are exploring the timeline with him and Peggy. He now has a kid. We saw him put down that Captain America suit. I think it's really important that they said Steve Rogers will return and not Captain America. So Sam Wilson's Captain America. Remember that, please. And it's clearly going to be a different Steve Rogers slash Captain America and a different portrayal from Chris Evans here. I've got my concerns about this. I've got my positives about it. I've got a lot of mixed emotions about how they're going about this movie and how they're going about Chris Evans in this movie. But it was exciting to see that teaser, and I think that's a discussion for the other day. I've talked about Doomsday a couple times in the past, but I don't think I'm going to do a full length video. Or, you know what? Here's what I'll promise. Once all four teasers are out, I'll do a video talking about all of them, what I feel about Doomsday at that given moment. So that's what I'll do. But yeah, just wanted to talk about it a little bit. It was cool teaser. If you're a Marvel fan, well, now I've just spoiled the whole thing. But like, no, I haven't actually. There's a couple things in there I haven't spoiled. If you're a Marvel fan and you're excited for Doomsday and you like Chris Evans, go see Fire and Ash and just go see it anyway. But go see it for that. If that's the reason that it gets you out to see it, I'm happy. If you're Odyssey fan, Marvel fan, or both, and that's what gets you to see Fire and Ash and buy a ticket, great. I'm happy about that. So yeah, there you go. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Doomsday thing probably in a future video, and I'm sure I'll review the Odyssey when it comes out in the summer. But yeah, there we go. So thank you so much for watching this video, and go watch Fire and Ash. Let me know what you think in the comments below about Fire and Ash, Doomsday, Odyssey, whatever. Hit me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Active on all those social media platforms. And yeah, I am going to see The Housemaid today, which I'm very excited for because I love the book. And I will have a written review up tomorrow, probably morning or afternoon. So yeah, look forward to that. Looking forward to see that movie, and the reviews have been good so far, and I love the book, so I'm very excited for that. So yeah, support movie theaters, love the movies. Go see Avatar in IMAX, go see Housemaid, go see Mari Supreme next week, all of it. Go support movie theaters. We need it more now than ever. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.